Hello, everybody, and welcome to another lesson on soundproofing. Today, we're going to talk about extreme soundproofing. Yes, this is going to be exciting. So if you guys are drummers, if you play in a rock band, a heavy metal band, if you have loud planes flying over your house, all those things may require what I have called extreme soundproofing. It's kind of ridiculous, but it keeps things fun in a topic that is honestly kind of dry, and there's a lot of old crotchety people talking about there on the internet. So let's have a little fun today talking about extreme soundproofing and what the best floor, wall, and ceiling designs are if you need that super extreme soundproofing. Before we jump in, I want to let you know that I do have a free resource for you. If you're going down this journey of trying to design and build your own soundproof home recording studio, then I highly recommend checking out my free soundproofing workshop. This is an in-depth workshop that will go over the entire design process. If I were to rebuild my studio today, what I would have done differently, talking through all the different aspects, including difficult things like HVAC and the door and the windows and things like that. So if you want to take a deeper dive, definitely sign up for that. It's at soundproofyourstudio.com/workshop. That's soundproofyourstudio.com/workshop. All right, let's jump into this lesson on extreme soundproofing. Okay, so to talk about extreme soundproofing, we first need to talk about the basics of soundproofing. So there's three fundamentals, what I call the three pillars of soundproofing, and those are mass, an airtight room, or air for short, and decoupling our inside walls or inside structure from the outside structure. So those are the three fundamentals of soundproofing. No matter what room you're building, whether it's extreme, semi-extreme, not that extreme, it still needs to have those three things. So now let's talk about the most extreme floor, the most extreme walls, and the most extreme ceiling if you're trying to achieve maximum isolation. The floor is super easy. If you want an extreme soundproof floor, the only thing you need to do is pour a concrete slab on the earth. This could also be an existing concrete floor in your basement or a concrete slab in your garage. Any one of those three options will give you the most extreme soundproof floor and offer you the best isolation. If you're building on a second story, something like that, there's really no way to get the best isolation possible aside from floating a concrete floor, which is way too expensive for most of you out there. Also requires way too much expertise and is beyond even my own knowledge. So you'd have to hire a specialist who knows how to float concrete floors and blah, 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 blah. It would just be a pain in the booty. So instead of doing that, I highly recommend starting with a concrete slab, either pouring it in your backyard like I did, or in a basement or garage. All right, easy peasy, that's the floor. Now, our extreme soundproof walls, there's two options that I came up with that I think would work great for your extremely soundproof studio. The first one would be creating a concrete block structure. So your studio, we actually built one of these in Nashville. You can see here there's concrete blocks on the outside, but what they didn't do, which I think would be even more extreme and fun, would be to have concrete blocks on the inside as well. The other thing is you want to add sand into the concrete blocks. What this will do is it will help with damping, and it will add mass to your structure. So actually, aside from pouring concrete or any sort of extra mass inside the blocks, sand will actually work best because of that damping property. So that will give you a very soundproof wall. The next thing we can do with those double concrete walls is increase the airspace between them, and you have to add some insulation in there as well for it to work properly. But the airspace is the second thing that we can really tackle with increasing our extreme soundproofing. So the minimum usually recommended is 1 inch. And the reason for that is because most people don't want to give up their valuable space in their room just to increase sound isolation. But if you're extreme, you want to do this. You want to try to get as much of an airspace as you can between your outside wall and your inside wall to get the maximum isolation. So you can go anywhere from 1 inch to 10 feet if you want. The only thing holding you back is always going to be your budget and your space. So keep that in mind as you're designing your extremely soundproof studio. The second wall design is one that's more common. This is going to be a wood-framed wall using gypsum board or drywall. And with soundproofing, we always use 5/8 inch drywall. The reason is that it's the thickest drywall available commercially in most areas. So it's going to have you guessed it, the most mass, and mass is what we want. So a typical soundproof wall, this is not an extreme soundproof wall, is seen in this diagram here. And we can see on the far right that the STC of 63 is 2 framed walls with a 1-inch air gap at least, and some insulation, fiberglass insulation in the middle, and then 2 layers of 5/8 inch drywall on each side. Now, for most applications, this is a great soundproof wall. In fact, it would be good for pretty much all of you out there. But because I'm talking about extreme walls, the way you can really beef this up is by adding 2 more layers of 5/8 inch drywall on each side for a total of 4 layers of 5/8 inch drywall on both sides of your wall. That's a lot of mass. But remember, mass is what's going to increase isolation. The other thing you can do here is you can add green glue. Now, green glue is controversial, but I still believe, against a lot of people's uproar on the internet about green glue, it's still technically, according to their technical graphs and data, which until someone can refute it, will increase the low-end isolation of your wall. So I still recommend it if you have the budget for it. What you would do is just throw that green glue in between your 2 layers on each side. So you have 2 layers of drywall, green glue, 2 more layers of drywall. That is an extreme soundproof wall right there. Now, the thing you can do here that will increase isolation as well is, you guessed it, moving that wall out from the exterior wall. So by increasing the air gap, you will also increase isolation. So if you're trying to have extreme soundproofing, having the 4 layers of drywall with green glue in the middle and increasing the air gap, that will give you the most soundproof wall you can get. And yeah, you can add more drywall if you want, but it gets a little ludicrous at a certain point. But you know, this is extreme soundproofing, so go ahead and do it. All right, I have to talk about a word of warning here. There's a big misconception with soundproofing that you'll build this soundproof wall, floor, ceiling, whatever room, and you won't hear anything. It'll be amazing. You just enter the room and it's just perfectly quiet. Well, this is true for most of the time. When you do have an extremely loud noise, the thing that happens with soundproofing is it's like a volume knob. What we do is we turn the volume down of the loud noise. It doesn't necessarily make it go away, especially with low frequencies. We're talking below 100 hertz. Those frequencies are very difficult to isolate. Everything I'm telling you right now in this video will help you with those low frequencies, but it's important to remember that you could spend like $150,000 on this extremely soundproof room, and you've done all this work and research, and then you walk in there and you're like, oh dang, I can still hear 40 hertz like a little bit. It's okay, you did a great job, but again, remember, it's not perfect, so keep that in mind. That was just a little word of warning there. All right, let's move on to our ceiling now. So for the extreme ceiling, what we're going to do, regardless of whether you have the double concrete wall or if you've got the double drywall system going on, you're going to frame a ceiling off of your inside wall. This is going to give you the most isolation. So you're going to have to build the ceiling frame so it doesn't touch the outside wall, but it only touches the inside wall, whether it's building off of the concrete blocks or building off of the wood frame. Now, we're going to add 4 layers of drywall to that ceiling frame. So you got to make sure with your contractor that the framing of your ceiling can hold all that weight, because this could come crashing down if it doesn't. So make sure you beef up your ceiling to do this. You're also on your ceiling, you're going to add 4 layers worth of mass above your ceiling on the floor above you or the roof above you. Now you might be saying, holy cow, that's so much weight. But remember, we're trying to match the mass of our walls and our floor, which is freaking concrete, and our ceiling, because our soundproof, extremely soundproof studio is only as soundproof as the weakest link. If we get weak in the knees when we're building our ceiling and our walls are super beefy and our floor is super beefy, it doesn't matter, because all the sound will come through your ceiling and you'll be like, dang it, I wasted so much time and money. So we got to stay consistent. So with that, I highly recommend that you would add 4 layers of drywall to your ceiling, and then you could use plywood, you could use self-leveling concrete, you could use 4 layers of drywall underneath your existing floor above you or underneath your existing roof above you. There's plenty of ways to design this. It goes way beyond in complexity of what I'm going to talk about in this video, but I'm just giving you the overview of how I would do this. So your ceiling would then be extremely soundproof after all that. So in conclusion, this is kind of a fun, ridiculous video, but I like it because it teaches you a lot about the physics and understanding soundproofing. By going to these extreme levels, we can see how we can actually dial it back and still understand the concepts. We have 2 main levers when it comes to soundproofing. If you're a drummer, and I hate to say it, drummers, you guys have the most difficult time with soundproofing because you fall into that, quasi-extreme category that I've been talking about here. Kick drums are super loud, snare drums are loud, the whole kit is loud, but really that kick drum is going to poof, poof, hit those low 40 hertz frequencies right through every wall, every ceiling, all around you. So you really do want to try to beef up your walls and your ceiling and your floor. So the best levers you have is you can pull the first lever, which is mass. Adding mass to anything in your room is going to help with isolation. It's super helpful, and it's the number 1 lever you should pull when you're trying to build a more isolated wall than the typical literature says with that STC63 wall I showed you. The second lever you can pull is the airspace lever. That airspace lever means that you can go beyond that 1-inch airspace and you will get greater isolation with the increase in distance. Now, could I tell you how much the isolation is going to be per inch that you add? No. In fact, it's really hard to get an exact measurement of how much more mass and how much the decibel ratings would drop. And the only true way to do this is to try to use the most amount of material that you can afford in your budget and that you can afford in your space, and just make it as soundproof as you can possibly afford. And that will give you the best results that you can do. So someone with a budget of, say, $1 million can go hardcore and just add tons of mass and all this stuff. And if you're a project studio and you only have $5,000, well, yeah, that means you can't afford as much mass. So keep that in mind when you're doing all this. We're just trying to soundproof the best we can. It's not perfect, but man, does it help. And man, am I grateful that I soundproof. So all this said, thank you so much for watching, guys. Remember those 2 levers of mass and airspace, and you'll be good to go with your extreme soundproofing journey. If you are on this journey, remember I have that free workshop for you. You can go to that workshop and watch it for free at soundproofyourstudio.com/workshop. That's soundproofyourstudio.com/workshop. I look forward to seeing you all in the workshop, and best of luck with your extreme soundproofing journey. All right. See you guys later.